Jeff Wilson started covering the Texas Rangers in 2008, though he'll never forget 2021. Out on his own, he decided it was time to do a podcast, but his wheels were spinning until a nerd came along. There's no going back now. Welcome to the Texas Rangers Baseball Podcast. Here's your host, Jeff Wilson, and the recliner nerd himself, John Moore.
All right, guys, welcome to the Texas Rangers Baseball Podcast, episode 31. John Daniels is going to be on the show. You may notice some things that are a little bit different. We're actually in a studio, the Roxo Media House Studios in Fort Worth. John Moore, who usually does this intro, he's still there. There he is.
I didn't get fired.
That's right. He's still here. But look, I'm doing the intro today because I wanted to talk about what's going on. You see what we're doing with the podcast. We're going to be in studio from here on out. I mean, this is very exciting.
Tell about Rangers Today.
Don't worry, John. I'm getting there. But this podcast is this is the next step. We've always wanted to do something like this. Very exciting. And as John mentioned, RangersToday.com has launched. What is that? Well, that's my Substack newsletter that is now not on Substack. It's the same coverage. It's the same price, $5.99 a month, $60 a year. And if you're already one of the nearly 1,300 subscribers, you got an email in your inbox showing you what to do. Your account's live. You just got to set a password, and boom, you're off. So this is exciting times. It's a good time to be getting into this website, getting your paid subscription. We're 5 games into the season, John, and I think it's time to dive into what's gone on so far.
This is going to be great.
John.
Yeah,
welcome to the studio.
This is fantastic, guys. Look, I know for all of you that have watched the YouTube channel and watched the stuff that we put out there and listened to the podcast, we can't thank you enough. But we knew this was coming. We finally started hinting about it about a month ago, but we knew this was coming. This is great. This studio, this setup is fantastic. I'm going to have a big head when I go home. My wife's going to think I'm famous or something. This is crazy. Let's get into this. Look, it's time to panic, right? Because they're 1-4. They're obviously tanking to get the first pick in the draft next year. No one saw the Rockies. The Rockies are going to be in the World Series. They're winning the National League West. Dodgers are out of it already.
Clearly.
There's no way. So, relax, folks. This is 5 games in. We've seen things we've liked. Pitching we knew was going to be a question. Here we go. So that's what it is. What did you see?
Well, it's 5 games, and everything's magnified at the start of a season. And so if you're in a slump, you're in the worst slump ever. And if you're hitting 500, you're going to be the batting champion, and go to the Hall of Fame. It's there might be some discouraging trends in there that potentially could be a problem going forward, maybe with the bullpen and the inexperience there. And I think it kind of gets sorted out, though, once the starters are able to log more innings.
Right.
But I guess offensively, you look at Marcus Semien, you're like, man,
he's a bust, right? So he's a bust.
he's having a terrible time here through 5 games. But apparently, he was sick in Toronto.
Yeah,
we found out last night. So I saw him that night in Toronto, Friday night on opening day, and he seemed fine. So who knows, but. It wasn't COVID because he was able to get out of the country, so that's good.
Obviously.
Yeah, how about that? So I go to Toronto. I had to fill out 2 different apps on my phone to make sure they had all my information.
Right.
And then to get out, you got to get a COVID test.
Right.
So I had to go to the ballpark, 7 o'clock game, 7:30 first pitch in Canada, and I had to get there at 10 to get a COVID test. And they didn't have to jam it up my nose, but they had to tickle it, and everything was fine, but man, I like Toronto. It's a very clean city,
they're making
diverse.
It difficult, though.
But man, I don't know that I'm going to go to Toronto again unless I absolutely have to. And that doesn't even talk about the customs. It took me 2.5 hours to get through customs.
Oh my gosh.
I made my flight by 4 minutes. But
coming home?
Coming home. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But Anyway. A little off topic there.
Well, you know what? We're winging on today. This is fantastic in here, and you were there, and I think people don't realize the content you're going to get here. Like we said, Jeff's a daily beat writer that covers his team every day. The podcast that we've come in every week, and I had 4 people come up to me. We're going to talk about Jack Leiter. We were out there last Saturday night. We're going to talk about that later. I had 4 or 5 people come up to me, praise the podcast because it was weekly. And they were getting it weekly, even through the offseason, which you and I kept that going during the offseason.
Yeah.
And we were thinking of things to talk about. We had guests on every week, but we had stuff to talk about. The lockout, even through the lockout, we weren't on lockout. We got to do our stuff.
No, we were not on lockout.
So, some of the things, we were out there opening day. We did our little pre-thing opening day. We'll hopefully tomorrow I'll try to do that. I'm getting out of town for a couple days with the kids before tomorrow's game. But I tell you, I don't think the offense is the problem on this team. And everybody relax on pitching. These guys, everybody's got to remember, the guys that were already on the 40-man roster, this is really the last week of spring training.
Really the last two.
This is when they're ramping up to go. So while they're finding their way, the hitters are going to be ahead of the pitchers right now.
Yeah. And look, at spring training, it's always standard. The first start is two innings or 30 pitches, whichever comes first. Then they go up by 15 in an inning and get to the point where on opening day they should be able to pitch 7 innings. Well, guess what? They're not close to that. You're going to get another start. Dane Dunning, who went 5 innings, the only one to go 5 innings so far.
Well, he got into the 5th.
No, he finished the 5th.
Dunning did. Okay, that's right.
He might get 6. He's not gonna pitch a complete game against the Angels on Thursday night, and that's just where baseball is right now. That's the lockout. Say what you will about the lockout and what it did to the game and the popularity of the sport and left a black eye, which all those things are true. But baseball is not going to be the same. I don't think until maybe mid-May, because hitters did not get their normal at bats. Relievers worked 5 games instead of 8 or 9 like they usually do.
Right.
And then starters 4 innings. I mean, come on, and so the rosters are expanded. Yes. There's extra relievers, sure, but they're all going to get worn out here early on, and it's not going to be pretty. And their stuff's not dialed in yet. They're not built up to begin with, and now they're having this extra workload, this extra adrenaline, third deck, all that stuff that goes into it, and it's kind of like they have to take a step back here initially and then go forward. So
exactly.
And it's not just the Rangers; it's everybody. Everybody.
And even on the offensive side, and people so overreact in the fan side, and I get that, for Marcus Semien. I think Halleck brought it up last night. They said, look, if this was the middle of June, we wouldn't be worried about what Semien's done. It's that little run you get in, but it's the beginning of the season. He just signed the big contract. Marcus Semien is going to be Marcus Semien.
Yeah.
So, look, this won't be prolonged. I think eventually this goes in. What Woody said was interesting. He's trying to, maybe Marcus is taking a lot on his shoulders, and he's trying to make him understand, look, you don't have to carry this team. We've got a lineup now that can produce, and this lineup does produce. I tell you what I've noticed about 5 games in that was so not like last season. You never feel this team doesn't have a shot to get back in this thing. Yeah. Last night, they would have taken the lead had what's his name not made that.
Seager's home run.
Yeah, if that Seager
Randall
done
Grichuk
that catch was
robbed a 3-run homer, and they were down 3-1 at the time, 5th inning. All of a sudden, boom, they're in the lead. They turned the game over to different guys in the bullpen.
Absolutely.
And
what a catch. You give the guy credit. That was fantastic.
Obviously. Right.
Although you could see it from where Jeff and I were sitting. I saw him tracking it, and I was like, okay, that guy's got to play for this thing. But it looked like from where we were, that was going to carry out. But that was just a heck of a play.
Well, and he hit it very high. So it allowed Grichuk to get a chance to get under it. But anyway, the offense, to your point, is fine. That was their worst game yesterday. And, they only had 4 singles from 2 guys.
Right.
They had 5 walks, which is a good sign. But you look at what Mitch Garver's done so far. Mm-hmm. I think he's been a really good addition to the offense. He's very. You can tell that he seems kind of intimidating in the box. I think.
Right.
It doesn't budge. Fights, draws walks.
Yes.
Knows what he's doing. Professional hitter. Kind of adds to a position where the Rangers haven't had been strong offensively for a long time.
Exactly.
And then takes pressure off of Nate Lowe and takes pressure off of Adolis Garcia, and
who have done well.
Yeah, I mean,
Garcia's a little bit, but Nate's looked fantastic.
Yeah, and Adolis had a nice game Monday. He's drawn some walks.
Yep.
And I think that's important for him after last season where he chased a lot. Shoot, he didn't even get to 40 walks last year, and he had like 600 plate appearances, and he's at 4 now. And I'm not going to say he's going to walk 100 times this year, but if he can walk more, he can't be too passive. That's the thing that Chris Woodward said. He likes that Adolis is seeing the ball better, taking pitches, laying off pitches out of the strike zone.
Right.
But if there's a ball in the zone, he needs to be ready to hit it. And maybe there's a little passiveness, and you don't want Adolis Garcia to be passive.
Yeah, and that's finding your way when you're getting in there. They've obviously preached to him. You need to be more selective at the plate. We want you to hit the pitches that the pitches you're going to drive and do that. We want your walks to go up. He's done that. He's shown that. But yes, he's laid off a little bit. And you've seen some that were right down there that he could have gone after, and he's laid off. And it's nice to get a walk, but there's a reason they like your bat in the number 4 or 5 hole. It's because when you hit a ball and you get a barrel on it, it'll go 450 feet. And so, I mean, yeah, Woody was talking about that. Tell me who you say. Okay, first of all, let's go to the bats.
Okay.
Who's impressed you so far? I mean, Seager, obviously, that's an easy one. He's hitting 300 and what he's done at the plate. Who's somebody that's kind of stood out?
Well, I talked about Garver. I think he's been very good. Miller, what he's done has been good. He knows his role. One thing you can say for sure is the guys who are coming off the bench are ready to hit. So that's good, and that just gives the manager a chance to mix and match and makes the offense better. And I know he's only played 2 games, but Nick Solak looks like he's in a good place, and I'm sure he wants to be an everyday player right now. He's platooning. He's only playing against left-handed pitchers, but you know what? If he can be good, if he can make the other half of that Brad Miller thing work.
Yep.
That's not a bad little position.
And I especially like that because before the season when I did my little armchair GM things that I like to do, Solak is my guy that I kept saying I don't see a place on the team. Yeah. And I did that a couple of times. And I love it when a guy earns his way. When you bolt your way into the team and you make the team and then you're doing what you're doing, you can't help but take your hat off. On the pitching side, who has stood out pitching-wise that look, none of the pitching has been fantastic. On the starting pitching side, maybe Hearn, who looked okay for what we had in the rotation. Tell me some pitchers you were impressed with so far.
Yeah, I mean, I do like what Martin Perez did last night. Just
so did I.
His ability to manage the game. There were a couple moments where he found himself in trouble, and he, as you joked, he hit 2 guys and then immediately got double play balls. But
yeah, that's what I said. He was setting up the double play.
Martin knows how to pitch. His results have been pretty inconsistent the last couple of years in Boston.
Right.
Not an easy division to pitch in, not an easy park to pitch in, but he's a different guy. He's more mature. I think those innings would have blown up on the 2016 Martin Perez, let's say.
Right.
He would have gotten miffed at a missed call or something. That stuff used to get under his skin. He is different from a maturity standpoint, which is great and what you would expect to see. But he can make pitches, and I think that just he's going to be able to give innings. He's going to be able to take a load off the bullpen as the season progresses. So I'm a Martin Perez fan. I've known him since 2008. The first time I met him, he was 17 at the time. So, but I thought he pitched well.
And I personally, when you're looking at something like Jordan Lyles and Foltynewicz last year, I think Martin Perez is a step up from that. Personally, that's
sure.
me. And maybe I have a bias because I did like him when he came up with the Rangers originally. I loved him as a pitcher then. Yeah, every once in a while it tends to get a little bit away from him, but that 2-seamer works for him. He has gotten so many double plays with that 2-seamer and that sinker and all you need from Martin Perez, you need about 120 to 50 innings is what you need. You need that now because there are guys at AAA or in AA that everyone is going to say they think they're ready to be here. They're just really not. We just need to see them get some work and get those innings built up.
Yeah, and and like I said, on the bullpen side, it's just gonna take them a little while. They're younger. They need to get their appearances under them. I think Josh Spores and John King have pitched well since opening day. They weren't very good there in the opener, but they've been good their last 2 times. So I think that's kind of an encouraging sign. And we'll see what happens. We'll see. There are a lot of guys on option who can come up. I don't know that there was some talk last night in the group that Spencer Patton, his days might be numbered. I don't necessarily agree with that. It's been 5 games, and they're like, oh well, we got to have Nick Snyder up. Nick Snyder's in the minor leagues because he pitched at 3 different levels last year.
Sure.
It was his first year off of Tommy John surgery, I believe, and there's no need to rush them. I know people want to win, and they see the $561 million that was spent on December 1st, but this team is still building.
Right.
This team's not going to win the division this year, and basically the Rangers have said that. The pitching has to develop, and that's why they didn't invest in pitching. They want this year to see the pitching develop, and if it doesn't, the next offseason, that's when they spend.
And that's also the reason that when you're looking down in AAA and you see Leody Taveras and you see Bubba Thompson, who have gotten off to hot starts, the reason they are not going to be up here right now is because they're not going to play every day up here right now. You've got an outfield of Miller, Calhoun, and Garcia. You don't need Leody Taveras up here sitting on the bench doing what Eli White's doing. That guy's perfect to sit on the bench while those guys get everyday at-bats in AAA and keep this thing going. If they keep this going for a month or two, then they're going to have to be looked at to come up here, especially if someone's struggling. One thing we know Woody will do, he'll put the bat in that's playing. He did that with Solak. Solak came out and had that great game. He was in the lineup the next day.
Right.
He's going to put the hot bat in. He always tries to play that. That's the analytics side of it. But if you're hot, you get in the lineup. Those guys are right where they need to be for now. We're 5 games in. Just be patient. I know everyone's screaming about it. Why don't we have them up here? Why is Eli White there? There's a reason Eli White's there. They like him. They think he can do well. But more than anything, he can sit on the bench.
Right.
And they're not worried about his ABs.
Yeah. No, Leody Taveras will be in the major leagues pretty soon. That's my opinion. Now, pretty soon in baseball might be 40 games, but he's that good, and he's got that kind of upside. And if he develops, reaches his potential, he really gives the Rangers a very good outfield. So
yes.
But the guy who makes some of those decisions is about to come on the show. Jon Daniels will be here momentarily, and we're gonna. Oh, he's here now. All right, so we are going to welcome him onto the show.
All right.
This is Marcus Simeon with the Texas Rangers. Welcome to the Texas Rangers Baseball Podcast with Jeff and John.
Okay, guys, and joining us for our very first studio edition. He was on the very first podcast we did when we launched this thing, the Texas Ranger Baseball Podcast. Now he's in for the first studio one. It's the president of baseball operations for the Texas Rangers, Jon Daniels. John, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm impressed by your setup here, guys.
Well, I mean, I had nothing to do with it, but the people who did have done a great job. Mostly Jay, who you just met.
Yeah.
He's the brains behind this one, and
the whole setup's legit.
Yeah, and we do a Frogs Day show and some other shows here, so it's pretty awesome. But
when you invited me, I thought it was be more like a Wayne's World, like your parents' basement, kind of a setup. So this is very impressive.
Well, good. I mean, I guess we got couches over there if you want to switch it up. Just do a little pop. So like John mentioned, JD was our first guest for our very first podcast, and so there's some symmetry here, but also the Rangers are off today, and he just happened to have some free time and no meetings, no roster moves today that you have to plan. Yeah. So good, easy day, and so thanks for making the drive from Arlington.
Let's be honest. He walked up to me Monday and said, "We're still on, right? We're still
on."
Is
that how it went?
I'm going to get to it because he was all excited.
My social calendar, I'll make sure it's lined up.
All right. So we're 5 games in. Mm-hmm. How do you like your ball club?
We were talking about this a little bit yesterday. It's like on one hand, obviously we're 1-4 right now. There's that in and of itself is no good, right? You want to be on the other side of that. The other piece is we've been in every game. You can make a legitimate case. A few things break, both of our doing and then just some luck, and we could be 4-1 or 5-0. So I think we've played well enough to be the record would be better. I think the game's been entertaining. The guys have been very competitive. We've got to obviously, find a way to close out some of these games when we have these opportunities. But I think I think we're on the right path there.
I haven't shown up to the ballpark yet and been like, the Rangers have no chance tonight.
Right.
Whereas last season I did that pretty much the whole second half.
Right, and even going in, Toronto, extremely tough place to play. Loaded club. They added some big dollar pitching to go with this homegrown, a really impressive lineup. Our guys played well there.
Yeah. But I know Ohtani's coming to town and he's the MVP, and Mike Trout, holy cow, what a player. But god dang, Vladimir Guerrero, that was frightening. Every time he stepped into the box, it was frightening.
He's one of those guys that obviously I never played at any sort of significant level, but when you see like pitchers out on the mound, they're only 60 feet away from some of these guys, and with a bat in their hands, and you're like, the fear factor of standing on the mound that close to a few of these guys. He's one of them. I mean, it's unbelievable.
He hit the ball hard every time.
He doesn't miss.
Every time.
Yeah. Good pitch, bad pitch. He's putting it forward with some velocity.
Well, his dad did that.
Yeah. How can Vlad Guerrero with the Guerrero ties for that 1 year? How come he's not a Texas Ranger?
One magical year.
So, John and I were talking about this. I don't know that we're going to have a true feel for how good a team is, any team, for maybe until May, just because spring training was short, pitchers are building up, bullpens are getting used a lot, hitters didn't get all their at-bats. How hard is it for you guys to evaluate right now?
There's a piece of that. I mean, I think your point on, especially May, given that even just the rules are going to be different, right? I mean, we're not getting to like traditional rosters until that point, and in a lot of cases, starters won't be built up until the end of it. Especially now John Gray going to miss one start and come back. Hopefully, I think we're expecting him back next week in Seattle, but his buildup has been cut back even further a little bit. So. It's a challenge. At the same time, like I think some of the more systematic things we're trying to put in place, the quality at bats, kind of the offensive plan, the usage of the pen. I mean, I think those things we can start to draw some conclusions on and see where we're at. It's always evolving, but I don't think we have to wait till May to do any sort of evaluate.
Well, I guess traditionally, like Leody Taveras struggled last year. Got sent out on like April 27th, and if you go back to 2014, Odor had the really bad beginning, got sent out I think like May 6th, somewhere around there. So just kind of wondering like how is the leash the same length, or do you have to make a move sooner maybe if you see a guy that's just like he didn't get enough spring?
Well, I think in those cases when you have a young player that's just so underwater and they really need a reset, and you feel like the mental side of it is holding them like. A lot of times, some of our best coaches are at the big league level. You want them to be with our guys. However, if they're just so overwhelmed at the big league level, you're just like that the environment is not conducive to allowing them to make those changes. That's why I think we made some of those early moves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming then that I remember famously Ian Desmond started 4 for 46 one year and then was an all-star.
Right.
I'm assuming that you're not worried about Marcus Simeon's 2 for 22 or 21, whatever it is.
There are plenty of things I worry about. Marcus isn't one of them.
Yeah.
No, he's not seriously not a factor there. I mean, I do think the transition into the season and all that, it can affect everybody differently, but I'm not worried about Marcus.
He strikes me as like obviously a leader, but like just talking to him, he's like so. There's a presence just when you talk to him, the way he delivers and the things he says. I know that you expect him to mash home runs and be a huge guy on the field, but it seems like off the field he's going to have a huge impact.
Yeah, I mean you hear that just so consistently about him, or we heard that leading up to when we signed him, and then since the kind of the reviews, whether it was from Nick Hundley, who now works with us, or Bob Melvin and people in Oakland or Toronto, or people who've been around him, like just the presence, the maturity, the self-confidence. I mean, I think it's a real stabilizing force for any team, but especially for a young team, for guys that are coming up and kind of have a little bit of an anchor in the clubhouse. There's a lot of Michael Young there where Michael could have had a slow start or a hot start. Had a bad day or good day, he's the exact same guy every day. Yeah. As somebody dealt with him, he stood up and answered the questions if he went for 0 for 4, 4 for 4, the cliche deal. But he truly was that guy, and always accountable. And I think Marcus has a lot of that to him.
Yeah, and this is a young team. I know Marcus and Corey have been there. Yeah, Cole Calhoun's been there, but. I mean, this is Brad Miller's been there, okay. But this is a young team, and especially in the bullpen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we tried, I think we wanted to kind of find that balance between obviously making improvements needed on a host of levels, but also leaving ample opportunity for some of these young big league guys to establish themselves, guys that we think have futures, and so that's where I think the leadership piece is huge, right? In giving these guys some guidance as they go through it.
What we were at the lighter start, John and I, and don't want to put him in the major leagues after three Double-A innings, but he's part of a crop of guys that should be making their way into onto the major league roster at some point in the next year or two. But like you said, you have young guys who are here now trying to. It seems like there are tough decisions ahead. A lot of maybe healthy decisions that a good team needs to make. But it seems like you guys are gonna have some stuff to sort through.
We're excited about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's good things to sort through and bad things to sort through, and that's a good one. First off, that whole group has a ton of talent. They got makeup. They've got all the things you want to see. The ingredients, they've got to do it, right? They've got to go out and perform and execute. There are, from a number standpoint, a depth of the talent standpoint, that's where the excitement really comes in, where obviously Jack or a few others will kind of draw more attention than others, but the depth of the group is exciting to where, if somebody does have a setback or an injury or whatever the case may be, there's still competition, there's still that wave coming. But it is going to be some good decisions in terms of managing the roster, in terms of, as we get into, we're not there yet, but as we get into a situation of considering trades for, the right pieces, long-term pieces on the club, and having to make those calls. And so I think our internal evaluation is going to be as big of a focus this season as anything.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it was you who told me there are two commodities in baseball. There's cash money and there's prospects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you guys have never been shy about upgrading the roster at deadlines and even in the off season. So all these guys aren't going to. They may all be major leaguers, but it's not necessarily going to be all with you guys.
No, I mean, and that's by design,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's ultimately, the best teams are able to make those trades because they have the talent, but also because they make good decisions and evaluating their own, and it's tough because you say there is an emotional component to it, and we are invested in these players,
Absolutely.
and we're in their homes, and we make commitments to their families, and we've seen them grow, and you don't, quite frankly, you don't want to trade any of them.
Right.
Ultimately, our goal is to win World Series, and to do that, we're going to have to make some of those tough calls down the line.
How hard is it to make a trade? Like you guys, I'm guessing the Kiner-Falefa trade was hard because of what a homegrown guy who's like
The emotional piece, yeah.
Yeah, kind of grown into what he is, maybe maximizing his talent, and a guy who was a vital component of the team the last 2 years to send him on his way, and Jose Trevino too.
So I think when, first of all, absolutely challenging. I mean, Izzy was a kind of a, off-radar high school draft at a Hawaii, not a known guy, and doesn't hit a pro home run until he's in big league spring training. And
I remember that.
and then he kind of develops confidence, and obviously we played him all over, quite literally all over, and established himself as a Gold Glove defender and energy and all that. I think when we signed Corey and we signed Marcus, it was with the understanding that, these are. We didn't know 100% it was going to be Izzy, but these are the decisions that are coming down the line when you have the depth in the infield. And then as we, it was interesting, we got a bunch of calls immediately after we signed those two on Izzy. And so
about to ask that.
so the Twins deal actually kind of started the day before the lockout.
Right.
And we just felt like, let's not rush into it. It was too quick. Like we didn't really have a chance to talk to Izzy. We didn't want to make a trade at the buzzer and not be able to speak to these players. And so we said, let's tap the brakes. Let's reassess once this thing's over. And then it picked up steam pretty quickly thereafter.
How hard was the lockout for you? Because you guys signed these 4 players and then nada.
Well, it gave us a ton of time to address things and tend to things that might not have gotten the attention otherwise, right? You really, with some new leadership in the development side, new coaches in the big league side, we had more time to get them together, and that was a real silver lining. Plus, our minor league players, off roster players, benefited a ton. Some of the big league guys that especially guys coming back off injuries that we couldn't really get our arms around. That was challenging. And there was some things, some similarities to like summer of 2020, like the COVID, and we all had to go home and kind of wait. It's like after a certain number of Zoom calls to kind of plan and like and do your best to anticipate what was coming. It was like, are we just having a call to have a call at this point? And so that part was challenging. Listen, like anybody, I think downtime, was the first time I can ever remember where I was able to like set the phone down and I wasn't worried I was missing something, because I knew there quite literally nobody was allowed to call me, and vice versa. So that part was nice for a week or two, and then it got old.
Yeah, and I just wonder, what do you think the lockouts had a lasting impact on fans? Because you guys didn't sell out your home opener, which hadn't happened in 25 years,
right.
But it's not just you. Like the Braves didn't sell, and the defending world champions didn't sell out their home opener. And I just wonder, do you think there's a hangover?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it's somewhat inevitable, right? I mean, it was a black eye. I mean, there's no other real way to describe it. It was, our fans were the short term. They were the ones that lost the most in this, and that's especially coming off of COVID. The 60-game season, and then last season with limited fans, and in most cities in the league. The timing of it was really unfortunate. Not that there ever would be a great time, but like it was just a compounding effect, and I feel like our fans had to wear it. And so, I think anything we can do as an industry to bend over backwards and make ourselves more available, more responsive to our fans' needs. We should do it at all times. We have to do it right now. The opening day thing, I don't know. It's a Monday. It's.
It wasn't supposed to be opening day.
I think Yankees, obviously that Thursday was going to be a sellout.
For sure.
But there's no denying that we did some damage to the goodwill in the sport.
Yeah. Well, John?
Yeah, I always do the fun stuff here, and you guys know when we had John on last time, I always do the fun stuff because Jeff does all the baseball hard-hitting stuff. So, last time we had you on, you talked about when you were in college, you were just like a sports nerd. You and AJ and you guys. I'm kind of that sports nerd now myself, as I played when I was younger, but I wasn't good. I was mediocre at best. But I'm really nerdy about front office and what you guys do and how you do it. What's your daily routine like? When does it start at home?
Yeah.
When's it start? What are you up, eating breakfast? You got to get kids off or you're at the office? What do you do?
So I usually get up about 6:30, 6:45, and we've 3 kids to get off to school, all at different schools right now. So my wife Robin and I sometimes one will just get up, and most days we both get up and kind of get them out the door. Try to get some sort of workout in, a short run or a little workout or whatever. Sometimes my son and I work out together in the mornings. And I usually get to the office around 10-ish. I'm sure the guys in the office are like 11. There's some days it's 9:30.
Yeah.
Pat myself in the back. And then kind of go from there. I mean, obviously it depends. The team home, team on the road, in season, off season, draft coming up, trade window coming up. All those things kind of affect it pretty significantly. And that's one of the, I think, challenging, fun, but also challenging things. Like no 2 days are alike during the year, because of all those variables. It keeps it fun, but it's hard to settle into routines. It's hard to make plans with friends or family and things like that, and finding that balance is a little bit of a challenge.
Has Chris Young helped with that? Having somebody else to maybe take a little load off of you?
For sure. And we try to, communicate who's got kind of what going on, at the office, who's got what going on at home, and try to make sure that it was one of the things that he and I talked about when he was considering joining us was will we be able to kind of find that balance, right, or help each other find it. Somebody told me a long time ago, said like, balance is that the idea of balance is the goal, but balance shouldn't be your goal because you're never going to find it.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to hold yourself back and think you're constantly failing. But I think if your family knows and people that you care about know that you're making an effort, you're making an effort, that's about as good as you can do.
Well, and got to take into consideration. You're saying you get to the office at 10, but if it's a home game, you're usually there till late in the evening. And on the road, is it different? I mean, when you go on the road, how often do you go on the road?
Less than I used to.
Because Chris goes more now, I assume.
I mean, we both go, occasionally, maybe once a month
Right.
or so. One city or maybe 2 cities a month.
Right.
Paul Kruger is going to do a lot of travel this year.
Oh, okay, yeah.
In his role, Josh Boyd does a little. Ross may do a little bit. Some of it too is it kind of depends on where you're at in the schedule, and if you have upcoming moves.
Right.
Woody now in year 4, pretty comfortable. Kind of, if he needs to make a move, we don't necessarily need one of us there. So there'll
Right.
be some trips where there is no front office representative on the road. I enjoy it because I think it's time with the staff. You get
Sure.
you can really get some good time with the staff. That there's a few people, families on the road, staff or players, but for the most part, guys have more time on the road to get feedback from and things like that. So I do enjoy that piece.
Are you home or on the road for the trade deadline? I haven't looked that far ahead.
I don't remember, honestly. I think we're home this year.
Oh, that's good.
I think we're home.
That's a
this
pain.
year.
Well, he's already promised us that we'll be in office with him that
That's
morning.
right.
Right there when
You
we
guys
get
can come here.
Yeah, so we'll
Just set up
we
headquarters
just set
here.
up right here, and we'll do it right here. Hey, what's one of the most common myths about your job or Chris's job? What's one of the most common myths that people don't understand?
Interesting. Well, so I don't know. I don't know what the myths are, but I think one of the things that we really try to do is give. We're involved in kind of setting the philosophy and setting the vision and kind of direction and where we're going. We really try to give our people the ability to do their jobs, and so, even back when Wash was manager, there was this perception like I was writing the lineup, and
Right, yeah.
and it just was never the case.
Yeah, it wasn't
you
true,
know.
yeah.
I mean, we discuss things for sure, and but then ultimately Woody makes those calls, and we'll discuss like how different roles and how guys are going to be utilized, or in the draft. Certainly the first round pick is kind of more of an organizational decision. As you move down the line, like Kip is largely making those calls with his team, and so I think the myth that the kind of the Wizard of Oz puppeteer that we're one or two people are making every decision is not. It's truly like there's a huge organization, a big team of people that we trust to make those calls.
And see, he said it right here, and I've known that for a long time, and people still don't think. They think people just run it like a puppet up there. And I've noticed, like, you know what? He's not setting the lineup every day, no matter what you think. Chris has that job. That's what he gets paid to do, is to make that lineup up and do that. Who was one of your big mentors in the job that you're doing now? Who was a mentor for you?
A couple. I mean, John Hart for sure. Hired me I was 23 years. Well, I was 24 years old, and I joined the organization at a time when it was kind of a good amount of turnover and some kind of it was not a real stable situation because of that. He trusted me early on. He gave me a ton of opportunity. I learned as much from him just by doing.
Right.
Josh Burns, who's an executive VP with the Dodgers now and has been the GM with San Diego and Arizona before. He was the assistant GM in Colorado when I got my internship, and he hired me there. And then and Thad Levine. Thad obviously assistant GM here for a long time. People might look at it as he worked kind of when I was the GM, but the reality is like he trained me. I was an intern in Colorado, and that whole group was great. They didn't treat me like I had to do coffee runs and airport runs and things that interns do. But at the end of that, I would I'd deliver the lunch. They'd come in and sit in the back of the meeting, and they'd explain stuff to me and more informally get my take on things. So that I think they taught me in a lot of ways to kind of be collaborative and how to treat people well and include them.
Okay, well, let's go off of baseball just for more fun stuff. What's your favorite type of food? What do you like to eat? You Italian guys?
I'm gonna guess sushi.
I do like steak, but I'd go Asian. And I know there's a host of different options there, but I can go pretty much any Asian direction. Yeah.
So whether it's hibachi or you just go get some egg rolls or go.
I took you to Saigon Kitchen
That was
in
good.
spring training.
That's a good spot. Yeah.
That's the Rangers dining headquarter, I think, front office dining
That
headquarter.
was really good, by the way. I'm good
Surprise
with any
is
Asian
surprise is
food,
a
too.
little limited, but that Saigon is like a legit spot anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what's your favorite home cooked meal? And is it your wife that cooks it? Does mom cook something you always love when you go home? What's the who cooks it and what's your favorite one?
It would be Robin. It would be my wife. I'm trying to think of the best. There's a few of them.
She's
our
a good
schedule.
cook,
She's a great cook.
Okay.
She's a great cook. I think our schedules and and 3 kids, including 2 teenagers in every direction, so it's not as frequent as it was.
Same thing, 3 kids, so I know.
Yeah, I mean I'll go just kind of a classic like steaks and the
Now, do you get on the grill sometimes and get them going?
when she's not around.
Okay.
Yeah, Robin has kind of like forbid me from touching everything. But good. I won't butcher a steak, but everything else is fair game to be butchered. Yeah.
Now, do you have like a guilty pleasure? Like I shouldn't, but I love Diet Coke, and I always got to have one up in the press box, and it's kind of do you have some kind of chocolate or something that's like your guilty pleasure?
I'll just kind of go and wait. I don't have one thing. I do like chocolate or dark chocolate or ice cream. Probably
Yeah.
with the kids, probably that'd be the one. But I'll go in waves where I'm like real, strict and good about it, and then other times like anybody else where
You're
you're
working out every day. That's what I finally lost some weight, so
I don't
I'm
know,
happy to be better.
every day's a stretch. But yeah, I try.
Now I've worked out with John before. We did a 90-minute Orange Theory class.
That's right.
Before I don't know, the 2018 winter meetings. It was brutal, and we were sore. So we're walking around I think it was in San Diego. We were just, our legs were hurt.
So you're like an animal on that
Oh
thing,
yeah,
man.
I'm a real animal.
You are.
Well, we stayed together when we were when we got that first week that we were there before the lockout was done. Yeah, he was up every morning going off to the gym, so I was just walking around that neighborhood we were staying in.
Yeah, I've got a little injury right now. I'm not as much an animal.
See, I get injured getting out of bed, so I can't do that. Okay, what would your wife say is the one thing you do that annoys her the most?
One?
Yeah, now
Well, it's
you gotta
funny.
pick one.
She just told me yesterday. She said, and there was a lot to choose from, but it was. She said I'm a bad sleeper. She said she calls me like I'm like a fish, like kind of flopping out of the water, and she said I keep turning over and pull the blanket off her and stuff. So she literally just told me that yesterday.
Apparently, I'm a loud eater.
You are kind of a loud eater.
My wife and I would we had desks across from each other for the entire pandemic.
Right.
And she told me one day that I'm a loud eater, and like if she's on a Zoom call, she
Telling you to get out of the room.
yeah. And so during spring training, she separated our desks.
Is it like with your mouth, or are you like clanking the
I think it's when I inhale. I think maybe I inhale when I eat.
breathing?
Because I do eat
Yeah.
fast, but maybe it's like a. But I don't smack my lips or anything. I'm very polite, but she's like, "You're terrible." So
I think this one's probably going to be an answer that he answers that you and I would agree with. Who do the kids fear more, you or mom?
I think Robin. I think. I mean, we kind of like have our different areas that
Yeah.
I think they're. I'm like OCD about certain things, but she's just more present than I am. So I think she's has to address a lot more things than I do, and I can be a little Disney dad at times. Swoop in and she rolls her eyes at
hey guys, listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we always end on what's something nobody knows about you. But before we do that, I want to do one deal, and I kind of always wanted to know this and how it goes from there. Like, let's take, now that it's done, the Gallo trade. So when you're doing a Gallo trade, you get in touch, the Yankees reach out to you, whatever happens. They start putting out names. I know right at your fingertips you can pull up a lot, but who do you go to in the scouting that you're like, we need to get eyes on this guy, or tell me about this guy? Where does it go from there? They've called, they want Joey, and you said, what do you got? They've thrown some names out.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you going to find out about those guys?
So Mike Parnell is our director of professional scouting, and
Okay.
so all of the pro scouts, and we have I forgot the number, but 10 or so guys
Right.
out in the field that report up through Mike,
Right.
and then Mike will kind of work with the R&D group, Ryan Murray and his team, kind of combining the scout takes with the analysts' information, and he'll typically Mike is kind of the one that's presenting.
Right.
Kind of the initial list for us to go through,
Okay.
and some of the target names. And Mike last summer reported up to Ross.
Okay.
Ross Fenstermaker, Ross now over we moved him over to development and
Right.
international, and Mike reports to Josh Boyd now. So typically, last summer it was Ross and Mike were kind of leading those meetings with the rest of our group.
So there are also guys when a name's there that they'll say, nah, not that one. Go this way or that way.
And it's kind of a starting point, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, these things aren't like, they're motion pictures. They're not still photos.
Sure.
The players are evolving. They're human beings. They're learning. They're growing.
Right.
And so I think a lot of the things that we're putting it through the filters of like, all right, what are we good at from a development standpoint?
Right.
What is the team that they're coming from good at from a development standpoint? What can we expect? Are there any, did they have any off-field issues that might have held him a personal tragedy, a loss,
Sure.
loss in his life, an injury, obviously, things that did he not start playing baseball till a little bit later? Does he have like a little more of a development path? So I think we're trying to always look at it through that lens of
Yeah.
like, what is this player today, but what is how much growth realistically in development can we expect going forward? And so, again, that's the initial list they're putting together, but we chew it up pretty good, ask a ton of questions. We go back to the guys that knew him, our amateur scouts, Kip and his team.
Right.
What kind of background we're calling, college coaches,
Sure.
who they worked with in the off season and what facilities, trying to gather as much and trying to put together as complete a picture as possible.
Well,
But in like 72 hours, or in some cases. I know the Joey talks probably started well before then, but like,
Right.
gotta.
Yeah, I mean, you make those decisions in real time. It kind of gets narrowed down, but we try to have certainly higher frequency talks in the off season and the trade time, but we try to have like weekly calls or where we're trying to stay fresh on potential partners on a regular basis, and we'll start talking about like next year's free agent class. This probably May or June. We'll start because you don't want it to be just a one. You don't want to make a decision in a 72-hour window with no background, obviously.
Right.
And I'm assuming too, before, if you got a player that's probably going to be available, you probably already know some teams that might have a fit for that player. Are you already getting some people? Hey, we might be the Reds organization. Maybe we need to go look at some stuff over there because they might be a player, or the Yankees, and you're already out kind of before talks begin. Maybe you're thinking there might be a fit.
Yeah. So using the Joey situation as the example,
Right.
We set out. We knew that there was a good chance we were going to trade. We were going to trade him if we didn't accept him. And that was where our head was.
Right.
We figured we would get across a threshold where we needed to get, and we did. And so Mike and the group kind of recommended, hey, these are the teams we're going to focus on and get extra looks at. We'll do our org coverage in these other spots, and we'll make sure we get extra looks and attention at these teams. And those are the teams we spent the most time on. But we want to be nimble. Whereas if the team, somebody got hot, in July and jumped in on, or they had an injury in the outfield and they jumped in on Joey, we wanted to be able to respond.
Be prepared, right.
And not say, well, we can't consider them because we didn't have.
We've only done work over here, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have the luxury. You only have 29 partners, right? So you can't rule anybody out when they may be the most motivated and have the best return.
That always makes it fun too. And I do some contract stuff in my work, but when you have a little leverage that there's another team on board, that always helps. Anyway, okay, so what is something nobody knows about you? I don't know if you've listened to some of these, but so let's give some fun examples. Some of your players.
Brock Burke sleepwalking. You knew that.
You knew about that. So that was, I discovered
Davis
that
Wenzel got his finger cut off
when he was
right?
5.
When he was,
wasn't this week. It was when
when he was
5.
4 or 5. And then
Jack Leiter and the
doesn't
peanut
like
butter
peanut
thing
butter.
is still one. I talked to his mother and sisters at the game Saturday. They said it's been from the time. She goes, I always used to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches when we would travel or go out to see Dad. He couldn't stand it. He loves peanuts. Can't stand peanut butter.
Really?
I asked him, if you were on a deserted island and you only had peanut butter, are you going to starve to death? And he goes, probably.
Wow.
I don't know if we would have taken it if we knew.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Gotta go get him on the trading
I
block.
know, yeah, that's,
so what's something that nobody knows about John Daniels?
Daniels?
Sorry, I can't put that on.
I mean, I don't know. I've like definitely OCD in certain. I think we probably all do. It kind of manifests in some weird ways.
What's the most OCD thing you do?
Two things stand out. One's kind of bizarre / embarrassing. The other one's just bizarre. But I have to wear like certain underwear on flights. Yeah, certain underwear.
You heard it here.
I've flown a bunch. So I'm here. Everything's good, right?
Yeah.
It's working, so it's
Okay.
fail-proof.
Good.
That's great.
And in other words, when I get a cup of coffee, at Starbucks, you get the coffee, you get the liner, to keep it from burning your hand or whatever.
Right.
And then the coffee has a seam down the side. The cup has a seam down the side of it.
Sure.
So you have to line up both seams
That's not weird.
on one side, and then have the sip opener right on the front.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue
There's
with
nothing
that
wrong with that.
Otherwise, you don't know what could happen.
Jeff, anything else before we let him get back to work or go home and do the poll or
Yeah,
whatever
he's got an
gonna
off
do?
day. Right? You're
Yeah.
semi-off day?
Semi-off day,
Go
right.
home. Shoot.
John, we can't thank you enough for joining us again, for coming on here today. Guys, that's John Daniel, the president of baseball operations. When we come back, we're going to get into the minor leagues and talk about them.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that was fun. Okay, that was President of Baseball Operations John Daniel, which was great for him to come in and join us today. But now we want to get into one of the big things that John and CY have done, and that is build the minor league system. They're off to their start right now. It's time to get into talking about them. You and I were both at Ladder Night, or the Jack Pack, or whatever you want to call it. I was actually out there Friday night, too. You were in Toronto, apparently dealing with customs and everything else, trying to get in there. But, boy, the Frisco was unbelievable atmosphere out there, especially Saturday night. Friday night was pretty good, too. But let's get into the minor leagues and go down on the farm and talk about some of the stuff that's happening. Tell me about what you saw Saturday night.
Yeah, you're right about the atmosphere. It was really kind of fun, kind of a buzz. This is the number 1 draft pick, the guy who is going to ride in on a stallion and save the starting rotation. But the thing that I walked away with was it was a professional outing. He stayed within himself. He found a way to get hitters out, and it wasn't his fastball, which I figured out pretty early that the fastball command wasn't very good, and he just started spinning breaking balls, both a slider and a curveball, and those Arkansas hitters didn't have a chance against him. He could have told him it was coming, and I don't think they would have been able to hit him, and it took him a while. He wasn't efficient. He threw 61 pitches. He had to figure some things out, but
7 strikeouts.
Yeah, it was 7 strikeouts. And he only got 9 outs. 7 were by strikeouts, and I just think that for the first time out, with all the hoopla, with his family there, the Jack Pack stuff, which I think is going to be a season-long promotion, and that's fine. And that's fine.
He's going to pitch every Saturday night.
Yeah, it was very good, and now that that's behind him, if he needed to exhale, I don't think he did, but if he did, he's ready to move on. Now it's going to be a slow build-up. This next start, he's probably going to throw right around the same pitches, maybe build up a little bit more, then the next 2 a little more, then the 2 after that a little bit more, to where they let him go maybe 6 or 7. But for a guy who hadn't pitched in a meaningful game since June, and I mean that game meant a lot. The first game of the College World Series, final series. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, you couldn't help but be amazed at the poise on the mound, the way he handled himself. Look, this is a guy, and this is something I noticed not only with Jack. We got to talk to him. He's been on the podcast.
Yeah.
We talked to him after the game. They had a whole. This isn't normal. I cover a lot of games out at Frisco that I've gone out to more than Jeff because he's always at the big league field. But they had a whole room set up for us just for Jack to sit and talk to him. You can see the video on the YouTube channel of Jack's remarks. He is very poised talking to the media. Probably helps that his dad was a 20-year big leaguer.
Right.
But I noticed it also with real jump quick to the big leagues. Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and people like Leiter. When you have that much talent, they tend to be a little more reserved in what they say, and they're more polished at it. Jack's already polished because of the immense talent that he knows coming up. He's got a head on his shoulders with what he's doing, and I was very impressed. You have to be impressed. The hit that they got off of him, that would have probably been caught in the big leagues.
Yeah, big leaguer catches
And then the
that.
right field, Fabian, I think, who was out there. He stumbled. Shouldn't have scored the run the way he stumbled on that.
Right.
But it was the only hit. But yes, you have to be impressed with what happened. And the bats weren't bad. I'm telling you, Blaine Crim's still my guy to watch.
Yeah, I know. I like Blaine. You know, down at Frisco, I don't. You know, Dustin Harris maybe is off to a little bit of a slow start, but I don't know that they're worried about him. I mean, that's a pretty big challenge making that jump from high A to double A.
That's the biggest one they say.
And you know, Crim's going to be there, and Crim won the batting title in Puerto Rico over the offseason, so he's going to be fine. I like John Ornelas. He's an intriguing guy. I think he's developing power. He can play all over, and so I think he's kind of a guy to watch. And of course, you know, Ezekiel Duran.
That guy's a stud.
Yeah. He's a good player. He's got a chance to reach AAA, I think, this year. So it's a real good group. And then, you know, you talk about the rotation with Cody Bradford, who actually started on opening night.
I saw that one.
Cole Reagan, Zach Kent, Avery Weems, a bunch of guys who are arms that are if you don't know about, you need to know about. And so it's a good group. I think if you're a baseball fan and you're a Rangers fan, you want to see these prospects, you need to get out to Frisco. I mean, I'm not trying to do Chuck Greenberg and Victor Roas's job for them, but
no.
This is a good group, a good core of prospects who, if you're a Rangers fan, you're going to know them pretty soon, because in 2 to 4 years, you're going to see a lot of these guys on the big league roster.
And let me tell you this, and this goes without saying, when you're at AA or higher, look, you're an injury or a need away from getting called to Arlington. And so that's a good way to get out and get close to someone who's going to be a big leaguer, who could be a big leaguer. I'm not going to say going to be a big leaguer, but could be a big leaguer. You've got 4 guys in that rotation that I would lay money on are going to be big leaguers, all the way back to Reagan's, who have the arm, whether it's in the bullpen or not. Yeah. But this is a great way to go out. These guys are 2 steps away from getting to the big leagues in AA, and they're 1 call away. There's AA guys. Elvis Andrus never played one play in AAA before he got the call to go up to the major leagues. So it's a cheap ticket to get out there. You can take your kids and go on the burn out there and do it. And we're promoting Frisco here because it's local. If you can't get out to the ballpark or Globe Life Field, go out to Frisco.
Yeah.
What's it called now? It's not Dr. Pepper.
Riders Field.
Riders Field, and it's a beautiful stadium. So down below that, Vanasco went last night, struggled a little bit. I kind of expected him to struggle. He did that against TCU the night you and I saw him. Right. He's amped up. This guy hadn't pitched in 2 years in an actual game. He pitched those the fallen strucks and doing that, but that's not playing a ball game.
Right.
And now he's back in it. He struck out 2, I believe, in 1 2/3. Gave up 3 runs. He walked a few, and that's what Vanasco's going to do.
Well, and I just think, like you said, he hadn't pitched in a game that counted since 2019. You know, and we've seen the way he's changed his personality. He's still a good kid. He's a little more outgoing. He's much bigger physically.
Yeah.
But he's got so much energy, and so he's so intense and wants to destroy every hitter in the batter's box. And you got to learn how to harness that.
Yep.
You know, and I think he's going to be fine. You know, that rotation's fantastic too.
You got
Owen White, Vanasco, T.K. Roby, Mason Englert, who's from Forney.
Right.
You know, it's pretty interesting. Somebody with the Rangers said that those might be 2 of the top 10 rotations in all of minor league baseball.
Yes.
And just from prospect and upside value, I think you'd be hard pressed. And Arkansas, who played Frisco over the weekend, has 2 really good starting pitchers in its rotation.
2 of the top pitchers in all of baseball. They had that went the first 2 nights are in the top 50, I believe, in all of baseball as far as pitching prospects.
Yeah, I mean it's there's good talent every. You know, last year Bobby Witt Jr. played in that league, and Julio Rodriguez was on the Arkansas team. So I mean, Mike Trout's played in that league. I mean, this league, that the Texas League now, was called the AA South or whatever last year.
Yeah.
There's good talent there, and there's good talent in the Carolina League and the Sally League where Down East plays. And you know, you got to keep your eyes on all of them. Down East, I think, is off to a little bit of a slow start, but you know, Max Acosta and Marcus Smith are playing there, and at Hickory you have Evan Carter and Aaron Zavala, who really through their first however many games have been exactly what the Rangers thought. They're very patient hitters,
Right.
very selective.
Drawing some walks.
And that helps them survive any challenge because you know the strike zone and you have an idea what hitters or pitchers are trying to do to you. If you get in a slump, you're not going to stay in it long. And so that's the foundation. That's why some of these guys have been pushed. Evan Carter's still 19.
Yeah.
He might still be 18. Now he's 19. But anyway, he's young. And he only had 106 plate appearances last year at low A. But they see a foundation with just what he can do as a hitter that they wanted to challenge him. So there's some pretty interesting stories. You don't worry about the stats early on. I don't think. You just kind of let them get their feet wet, and after a couple weeks, then you start to wonder. One note with Hickory, Luis Acuna Jr. has a hamstring strain. He got hurt on opening night, and he's going to miss a couple weeks. So that's a bummer, but. He started slow last year and then finished like mad. And we both saw him at minor league camp. He's a little stump. I don't know how. He's about 5'8" and could bench press a car, I think. And of course he's got the famous bloodlines. He's Ronald Acuna Jr.'s brother. But man,
his future might
something.
be as a utility guy. He plays all over the field, but I tell you what, that kid. He puts the barrel on the ball when he hits it.
He hits the ball really hard. He hits it
really hard.
His exit velocities the last from instructs of 20 through last season have been as high as anybody in the organization. And he's going to develop he hit 13 home runs I think last year, something like that. But there'll be some more launch. There's going to be more power. So again, the Rangers it's just very deep. There's a great pool of talent at AAA, AA is loaded. High A is loaded with prospects. Low A, you're going to see guys who emerge this year and climb the prospect rankings when other guys graduate. And we haven't even talked about Round Rock yet.
Yeah.
And Round Rock lost his first 3 games, has come back well.
Right.
We talked about Tavares before JD was on. He's hitting like 522 through his four games or something like that. Bubba Thompson,
he's stolen 5
very good
bases,
player.
Bubba has.
Josh Smith, who's on the board behind you, he's come on. He started a little bit slow, but he's hit a homer and he had a couple hits in his last Tuesday night. He had a couple hits. Played center field one game.
Yeah.
That's something to make note of. He's going to play some center field.
Yes, that's right.
Davis Wenzel is going to play some left field. They're still going to play shortstop. They're still going to play third base. But those two and Bubba Thompson were probably the stars of Major League camp, at least from the prospect group.
Right.
And they're a lot closer. Josh probably got pushed. To be honest, I don't even think he had 300 at bats last year. He definitely didn't have more than 100 at AA. But I think what he showed in the Cactus League, what he showed them during spring training, showed the Rangers through their own workouts and everything.
I kind of thought he'd start at AA, but they pushed him up, and that's fine. Look, he's not a young kid. He's not 19 years old. He's a college LSU SEC player. Yeah. So that was fine. And before we get out of here,
well, we can't forget Sam Huff.
He hit a bomb the other night.
He's Mitch Garver appears to be in place, but Mitch Garver's also only got 2 years left at club control. So Sam Huff could be the catcher of the future. He missed last year catching because of a knee injury.
Right.
Cole Winn made his 2022 debut and pitched fine.
Right.
Jake Latz is down there. So AJ Alexi. So there are prospects who are very, very close. Some of whom have been in the major leagues.
Right.
Who could help this team this year, and at some point probably will get called upon. If things go south, I think they're going to go a little bit north here for after this start. But I think ultimately this team's not a contender. But I think that at some point when that decision is made, and you still want to get your guys at bats, but at some point these guys are going to push their way to the major league roster.
I totally agree with that, and I've said that all along that you got to give it time to do that. There are guys that are going to push their way up. I want to talk about someone real quick before we get out of here. Dustin Harris had got a little bit of a slow start, but I went down and took some video of him and watched him. Mm-hmm. He hit 2 or 3 balls. He got a couple hits last night, I think. He hit 2 or 3 balls right on the button, right at people.
Yeah.
So he is. It's not that he's looking foolish up there.
Yeah.
He's had some bad luck. He's had some balls go right to people. That's a guy to really watch too. I didn't realize how how thin he looked until I saw him in person. As tall as he is, that guy's in shape.
It's lean. It's
Yeah.
and he was on our podcast right before Christmas.
Right.
And talked about how during the COVID lockdown he gained 25 pounds of just because he was in the gym. He didn't have anything else to do. So,
Right.
And you saw the power translate last year when he hit 20 homers in both A-ball levels. The thing that Rangers people have told me about him is his swing is short and simple. And although he's a big guy, he's not going to get beat on fastballs. There aren't a lot of holes in his swing, and so there's power in there. But he played in a Cactus League game toward the end of camp, and he had a couple hits against Brandon Woodruff.
Yeah.
So the Brewers really good pitcher who throws 97, 98 and has nasty off-speed pitches, and Dustin Harris wasn't intimidated and didn't get beat on the heater. So I think that's kind of an example of it. So there's a lot of potential with him.
Yeah. Guys, get out to the ball games. Go out and see those minor league players play. It's time to wind this thing down. We want to thank you once again to Raxo Media House Studio for putting this together for us. First episode in the new studio. We appreciate you guys for watching. Go subscribe to that YouTube channel and give us a like.
And we're still on Anchor. There's still the audio part.
The Anchor, the audio will come out. We'll get that out also. But until next time, guys, we'll see you at the yard.